What's up, Wargamers? Welcome back to another episode of Budget Wargamer, where today I want to do a deep dive into the rules of the Space Marine Vanguard that we're going to see first come out in the new Shadowspear box set. So between Fayette 2012 and Games Workshop, with the official releases and the unofficial releases, we now have pretty much access to all the data sheets, most of the psychic powers, the war gear, and some of the special abilities. I want to start off by taking a trip over to Fayette 2012, where we're going to dive into the data sheets that we saw a few days ago and give a little bit of a look over some of the special rules that these guys are going to bring to the table, and focus mainly on what's going to make them different than the normal Primaris Marines that you're used to. So aside from being a regular captain, he's got Phobos armor, which is going to be different than your typical Mark 10 power armor and any of the other armors that are currently out there. Plus he has an Instigator bolt carbine, which makes it a little bit different. This brings into play some of the rules that we're going to see consistent across the units within the Vanguard army, of which is the ability to target a character even if it's not the closest model or closest enemy unit. So at a 30-inch range, it's going to give him the ability to potentially put 2 pieces of damage, 2 points of damage, onto a single enemy character, which is going to be good, because he's not the only person in the army with that ability. What else makes him different? He comes with a camo cloak, so that's normally something we would see on Space Marine Scouts. In this case, we're going to see it on Space Marines with power armor, or Phobos armor more specifically. That Phobos armor also gives him the ability to deploy with concealed position, which is going to allow him to be able to deploy basically in a deep strike position up to 9 inches away, or at least 9 inches away, from the enemy deployment zone or enemy models during deployment. So that's going to be a really big deal, because it's going to allow them to take objectives. It's going to allow them to be deployed in cover, potentially, if you're smart, so you can take advantage of that camo cloak, which is going to give him essentially a 1+ save, unmodified, when he's in cover. And then he's also got a piece of Omni Scrambler war gear. This is going to prevent your opponents from being able to deploy in reserves or deep strike within 12 inches of anybody with this piece of war gear, and he's not the only person in the army that carries it. So instead of the normal 9, or if anybody had a special rule that allowed them to deep strike closer, he's going to push them back to a 12-inch bubble, which is really going to remove the threat from many units of being able to charge or having the ability to potentially get double the damage dice roll on a melt-a-gun, things like that. We're going to see a lot of Librarians, not just because they're in the box set, but because it seems like the psychic discipline that they've got for these Vanguard in particular is very complementary to their gaming style, and rightly so it should be. So this Librarian's also in Phobos armor, and that Phobos armor is going to give him a camo cloak as well as concealed position like we saw on the Space Marine Captain. He knows Smite plus 2 psychic powers from the Obscuration, which is a completely new psychic discipline. So aside from that, his war gear is completely normal. He has a psychic hood as well, but he doesn't really stand out as being much different other than having the camo cloak and concealed position and access to a new psychic discipline. So let's take a look at the Lieutenant. This is the last of the 3 characters that we see that are coming in the Shadowspear box set. Let's go ahead and take a drink of my Topo Chico mineral water here. Not a plug. He's also got Phobos armor, but in addition to having Phobos armor, rather than having just concealed position, he's got a grab shoot. So it allows him to deploy, it says, at the end of any of your movement phases, this model can descend, and you set it up anywhere on the battlefield more than 9 inches away from enemy models, much like a deep strike, and it deploys kind of like the Space Marine Reavers. He is a knife fighter, so any roll of a 6 made to hit in hand-to-hand combat gives him 2 hits instead of 1, and his tactical precision is a good complement to the Space Marine Captain's ability. Space Marine has the ability, Space Marine Captain has the ability to let you reroll 1s to hit within 6 inches. This guy lets you reroll 1s to wound within 6 inches. So he's got a different type of carbine than what we've seen on the Space Marine Captain. He has a master-crafted Oculus bolt carbine, the Oculus being able to see things. So this says that your opponents don't receive the benefit of cover when making saving throws against this weapon. It's going to be situational. I would rather take the Space Marine Captain's ability to be able to target characters, but this is also a rapid fire weapon as opposed to the heavy one that you've got on the Space Marine Captain. So I still don't know what the exact points of these units are going to be, but let's go ahead and dive in and take a look. I'm going to jump back and forth, but here we've got on the Warhammer community website some more rules regarding these guys. So concealed position, here. We've seen that. That's on the Space Marine Captain and on the Librarian. Don't know if everything's going to have that ability, but here's the new one, the Marksmen Bolt Carbine. So this is 24-inch rapid fire 1, strength 4, AP 0, damage 1. Sounds like a regular bolter already, except it says each unmodified hit roll of 6 for this weapon's attack automatically hits and results in a wound. No need to roll for a wound on the attack. That's pretty good because you could be shooting at something with much higher toughness than 4. Let's say it's toughness 7 or toughness 8, and or even a monstrous creature that has toughness like that. And this is going to basically make sure that not only would you have hit it outright by rolling a 6, just auto wound. So that's great. But it is unmodified hit. So anything that modifies your 5s and 6s isn't going to count for the sake of this ability. Smoke grenades, that's kind of like smoke launchers, how those were on vehicles. Instead of shooting, you pop smoke and then your unit becomes -1 to hit for the rest of the turn. So basically this is a unit getting that ability. Now here's a piece of war gear that this is going to be very complementary to that Space Marine Captain's ability to pick out characters. So this is the Bolt sniper rifle that we're going to see. I believe this is on the Eliminators, and this allows them to target characters even if not the closest enemy. In addition, when attacking with this weapon, choose one of the profiles below. Three weapon profiles that make this a versatile weapon, all of which have 36-inch range, and they all count as heavy weapons. But between getting 1 shot or D3 shots with the hyperfrag round, you could take high AP, potentially high damage, and if you roll a wound of 6 on the execution round, it inflicts 1 mortal wound in addition to normal damage. So that's a great way of taking out powerful characters, although you'll only have a limited number of shots, so it's not likely that every turn you're going to put a mortal wound on people. The second one, the Mortis round, it says this weapon can target units that are not visible to the firer, and you add 2 to hit rolls made for this weapon. You're basically automatically going to hit them, aside from rolling 1s, and then units do not receive the benefit of cover to their saving throws against attacks made with this weapon. So I think Mortis round is probably going to be the most desirable and most frequently used round with this, aside from taking out hordes with something like the hyperfrag round, where you might want to take out low-level characters by having multiple shots, or just the ability to be able to take out more things. Because with a squad of 3, which is at least what appears to come in the box of Shadow Spear, having the ability to roll D3 per guy is going to be situationally good. So these suppressors, these guys are like the Inceptors. They've got the grav chutes, and I don't know if they stay flying. They appear to be flying, but they don't seem to have anything more than just the regular grav chutes, unless I'm seeing it wrong. But they do have suppressing fire, so if your enemy takes not any wounds, but if an enemy unit loses a model, they're not going to be able to fire Overwatch to the end of the turn. So this would be good when you're deploying in a concealed position with other units within 9 inches of your opponent, so you could try to make some turn 1 charges. Let these guys pop off some of the fire warriors if you're playing against Tau or guard gun lines, and prevent them from being able to fire Overwatch back against you. So that's going to be a really good one. Here's some of the psychic powers that we want to take a look at. This is the new, what do they call it, the Oculus? No, it's the Obscurus, something like that. Bear with me. It is the Obscuration Discipline, so probably a made-up word for copyright purposes on Games Workshop's behalf, as we see with many things out there. But here's one of the psychic powers, which is Scryer's Gaze, and it has a warp charge value of 6, which is pretty normal, and if manifested, you select a friendly Adeptus, Astartes, Phobos, so specifically a Vanguard unit, since those appear to be the only units with those keywords so far, that's within 18 inches of the Psyker, and until the start of your next psychic phase, you can reroll failed hit rolls made for attacks with that unit's ranged weapon, and enemy models don't receive the benefit of covers when making saving throws against attacks made by this unit. So you could throw this onto something like the suppressors with or the Eliminators. I'm still getting used to the name. I think the Eliminators are the snipers. We'd have to take a look at the sheets again. But throw this on the guys with the autocannons, make sure they get the wounds off, or just anything else at that point. Shrouding is another one here, also at the warp charge of 6. And if manifested, you select another friendly Phobos unit within 18 inches, and until the start of the next Psyker phase. enemy models can only shoot if this is the closest target visible to them. So it might allow you to be able to make sure that your opponent can't shoot a key target as long as it's not the closest unit, which is good. So it kind of gives that unit the ability similar to like characters where they can't be shot at unless they are the closest unit. Although this says closest visible, so you couldn't use an obscure unit to block it like you could with characters. Target priority. So this isn't a psychic power, but this appears to be, let's see here, maybe a warlord trait, something like that. It says instead of shooting with your warlord at your shooting phase, you can select one friendly unit within 3 inches that has to be visible to your warlord until the end of that phase. Add 1 to hit rolls made to attack with that. So it won't help you get those unmodified 6s, but it will help make sure that your 1s become 2s. And then if you've got other abilities where you're getting +2 on, say, that Mortis round with the snipers, then you're basically not missing. So, Princeps of Deceit. It says if your warlord has this trait, then at the start of your first battle round, but before the first turn has begun, pick up to 3 friendly infantry units that are on the battlefield. You can immediately remove those units from the battlefield and set them up as described in your deployment section for the mission you're playing. So basically it allows you to grab 3 of your infantry units and switch their positions on the battlefield. That can be, let's just say, situational, but there's going to be times where you may want to deploy something intentionally to misguide your opponent's deployment and then deploy where you really wanted to go, or times when you deploy where you really want to go and your opponent counters your deployment with something that's just ready to take you out and you want to get into a better position. So those are some of the rules that we saw from the Warhammer community website. Let's dive back onto those awesome data sheets right here, and let's take a look at those units in a little bit more depth. So the Infiltrators, these guys are a 5-man squad, but you can take up to 4 additional and a Helix Adept. So it could be up to 10 guys in total. And they're armed with Marksmen bolt carbines, which is going to mean that for every 6 to hit, they get gets an automatic hit in a wound. So we've kind of seen that already. Let's see what else they've got. Concealed positions, so they're going to be able to set up immediately within 9 inches of the opponent's deployment zone. They have Omni Scramblers as well in the unit, so enemies can't set up within 12 inches. Reinforcements, at least, they can set up the normal units within 12 inches. So the Helix Adept, this is something I didn't take a look into too much before, but these guys are the ones with the smoke grenades that we took a look at just a few moments ago. So at the end of your movement phase, an Infiltrator Helix Adept can attempt to heal or revive 1 model from the unit. So it appears to be quite a bit like the old Apothecary rules, so it's cool that they could put that right in the unit, because just like a lot of special forces, you're going to take a surgeon with you into combat because you're not going to be able to get extracted or have access to a field hospital, so it's cool to see some rules like that coming in there. Now the Suppressors are going to be the 3-man squad. These are the flying dudes with the accelerator autocannons that are going to cause suppression, preventing your opponent from being able to fire Overwatch for the turn. So they have grav shoots and they're armed with accelerators, but they are able to move 12 inches. So I'm guessing that the grav shoots are more than just allowing them to drop. It's going to allow them to fly like Inceptors. So they also have smoke launchers, but that suppressing fire rule is going to be really key, considering that they're going to hit on 3s. They have 2 shots apiece, strength 7, AP -2, did 2 damage. They're probably going to kill at least 1 opponent model, putting effective suppression out every single turn. There's not an ability to add more than 3 to this squad, so unlike Inceptors, which I think you can field in squads of up to 6, these guys are going to be a little bit different than that. And I feel like we're missing somebody. The Infiltrators. Nope. So there's Infiltrators. It's the Eliminators we need to take a look at. Here we go. So the Eliminators are the 3-man sniper squad. We took a look at their weapons and the 3 different abilities that they have. They also have the concealed position and camo cloaks ability. But outside of looking like a normal Primaris Marine, it doesn't seem like anything other than their weapon and war gear is going to make them quite different. So that's what happens to be in the Vanguard forces. If you guys are excited about that, let me hear what your most anticipated units are and what you guys plan to do with them in the comments below. And stay tuned to Budget Wargamer for some more videos on Warhammer 40K and Age of Sigmar.